Hey, so welcome everybody back to OPT.Earth. I'm Michael Vincent. I am president of Americas for OPT Plastics, Ocean Plastic Technologies, and EVP of Global. I am joined with the wonderful and awesome and brilliant co-host, or I'm her co-host. I don't know. Emma Wightman. Tell me who you are, Wightman.
Hi guys, I'm Emma Wightman. I am a science communicator. I don't like all things plastic, but I'm interested in all things environment. I'm big on plastics, microplastics, and I'm here to have fun.
So you're a marine biologist, marine environmentalist.
I think technically my degree was marine environmental science because I didn't actually study biology because biology is like fish systems and animals and stuff. So I specifically studied environmental issue, which microplastics. So I think that's why it's like more marine environmental science.
So for everybody who's watching this and they hear marine environmentalist, are you out there running around blowing up plastic plants and throwing like dead whale carcasses on people using plastic straws and stuff?
Not quite that crazy. A lot of our work we do in communications, kind of behind the scenes, trying to reach out to people and tell them why people might feel the need to throw whale carcasses, but I'm not myself.
That's pretty disgusting and let's not talk about that.
It's not great. I don't love it.
The point is this. I don't think either one of us agree that eliminating plastics is the answer, right? And make life way too difficult. It's being responsible with them, right? I mean,
no way. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your background too?
No, because it's all under sealed court documents. And no, 34 years in logistics. So yeah, done everything except run a train and wanted to get involved and make something happen. And talking with the people at Oliver Nuds at OPT, it's a logistics issue. There's no doubt about it. The issue of not being able to get this done, from gathering the plastics at post-consumer to getting it to a separated and sorted into a recycling plant, and then from there to manufacturing. That's the piece that's missing. That in between piece that people forget about. They think, I've got money, I'll go to Target and buy something. Okay, well, it's got to get there, right? Just like we've learned in the supply chain over the last couple of years. This is the same thing. Right. Just throwing your stuff in a recycling bin doesn't get it done. And just demanding.
People are starting to learn that it's a logistics issue from start to finish. It's not quite as simple as we've been led to believe.
It is, and I picked out this new. It's not really a news article. It's a letter that I found. Right, it's a statement from a CEO of a company apologizing for trying to do the right thing. And I'd like to read some parts of it, and we can discuss a little bit of this if you don't mind. Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So this is from 2020, and I'm not going to say the company's name because I don't know where it goes. It was public, but a dear friend of blank company. Regrettably, we at company have to inform you that we cannot currently supply 100% ocean waste plastic OWP packaging, as we announced just over 2 years ago. Our packaging suppliers made us aware of this situation and also said they cannot guarantee that our current packaging that has 100% OWP on the labels is in fact accurate. Let me say to our global community, we apologize deeply. All right, let's just start with that part. I've got some other stuff highlighted, and to be completely transparent with everybody, Emma has seen this question. But what does that make you? What do you think about just the fact that there's an opening statement?
I think it's strong. I think it's powerful. I think it's hard for a company to admit that they are wrong. I think that it can go two ways. I think either the consumer is going to read this and think, oh, there's a company that's trying and it's not possible, so I'm just going to give up because this is impossible. Or what I would like to think would happen is that people realize, okay, you try the best that you can and you have to support these companies that are being 100% transparent with you. I don't want to work for or support a company that's saying, I'm going to have all ocean plastics in all my bottles by the year 2050, and then 2050 rolls around and
they got nothing.
That comes from
they got nothing, right?
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. I'd almost rather support a company that's at least putting the money into the research and development to see if these things are possible. That said, it does seem a little strange that they put the cart before the horse, so to speak. Why would you make such a bold statement unless you had the backing to back that up? So I wonder what kind of went on behind the scenes there when they made that announcement, and then I guess a little bit afterwards. I'd be interested in.
Yeah, a little bit of history on this would be nice. Taking it from its face value and what we saw here, I'm 100% in agreement with everything that you just said, and hopefully I'm right in assuming that they were just too ambitious and didn't realize just how hard it was going to be. I mean, they blame it on their supplier. They don't name their supplier and say, "Hey, these are the guys that screwed it up." But they kind of say, "Hey, because he says we knew this was an ambitious and never before achieved task by a company of our size in our industry, but we advanced with the assurances of our experts and our vendor and supply chain." So, okay, maybe you just agreed with some things that maybe you knew weren't going to be right or whatever it happens to be. But here's the other part of it, and we'll jump into this a little bit more. So it says, company will use this as a moment to look at our systems and make them better, to hold ourselves to a higher standard, and most importantly, to never forget our commitment to pass along a clean, healthy, environmentally sound planet to our children. In terms of concrete actions, we have initiated independent investigations and evaluating the situation to see how to move expeditiously to use the greatest amount of ocean plastic, post-consumer resin, and least amount of virgin materials. We are evaluating and will be enhancing our auditing programs. We are reviewing the lost environmental opportunity, finding ways to make this right and deliver on our original commitment. Number 4, beginning with all of our new production and packaging, the 100% OWP label will be removed from all packages. Legalese, right? Covering their ass.
Yeah, it is a lot. I did think, though, the one thing that I did want to talk about kind of in that
Please.
Is that I think the letter goes on to say that all of the bottles that they have that say it's 100% ocean plastic, they're going to keep those bottles in circulation instead of trashing them and kind of contributing more to the problem. So that was one thing that I really did feel was a really good thing to come out of this, is they were learning, okay, even though it says something that we failed to meet, we're not just going to give up and throw this all away. We're going to take these steps, and we're not going to pollute the environment trying to not pollute the environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. This tugs me both ways, and I agree with you 100%. Instead of like going, "Oh, we got to recall all these before we get sued," they're just going to leave them out there, and they say why. That is absolutely the smart thing, or the right thing. I don't know how smart it is because I don't know what kind of a nut job's going to be out there and try and sue these guys into the Stone Age for tricking them into buying sustainable bottles when they're not, right? And I don't know how guilty these guys are of accepting what a vendor said and then just putting it out there to try and dupe people. I don't know that was the effort. Doesn't sound like it. And my point here is looking at this is the more we see of these, it is good as long as we see this type of stuff, and I don't see like lawsuits out there, or maybe lawsuits that are dropped because of an agreement like this to come forward and do something better. That to me is progress. Celebrating a company like this company, not saying they were, but celebrating a company like this losing a lawsuit over this it doesn't advance anything.
Yeah, it doesn't help. Yeah, I think that's a big thing too. And I think to your point, I think it is good because I think that other companies now will see this and say, okay, it's okay if we fail. We're going to try as hard as we can to reach these really lofty goals. And they're kind of setting a precedent. Like it's almost a case study of, okay, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how to make your company more sustainable without over promising and under delivering. But if you do, that's all right because at least you're trying your hardest. One question I kind of had for you was, do you think that there's like this phrase, doing anything is better than nothing at all? Do you think that that's an excuse for some of these bigger companies to just do the bare minimum, or do you think that that's actually has some weight and some value?
Wow. Yeah, no, that's a big, it's a big one, and I'm not capable of answering something like that intelligently very, very shortly. Because the unintended consequences scare me. So I am a proponent of it as long as whoever is grabbing that also understands that the theory of fail fast. When it's recognize failure, kill it. Study it, make adjustments, and try again. Then we're good. Like these guys. These guys went for it. and tried to do something and probably didn't understand it. I don't think they did any harm. They may have fooled a few people unknowingly, unwittingly, and maybe they had some negligence in not understanding or auditing the process to understand what exact percentage was in that raw material that they were utilizing and claiming it was 100%. So maybe they're at fault there, but they really didn't hurt anybody. So, and they failed pretty quickly. And now they're adjusting and moving on with a better plan. So in this case, how can I argue against what you said? If you fail fast and move forward, that's good. The unintended consequences are a little scary when you're talking about, nuclear fission or something.
Right. I guess
then maybe that doesn't apply.
No, I think you're right. And I do think that I really hope that companies see this as an example of, like I said, it's okay to fail, because they should be striving for these really, really lofty goals and getting as close as they possibly can, right?
Yeah, 100%. And like you said before, you'd rather work for a company and buy from a company and support a company that's trying this over somebody who says, hey, we're going to be 100% ocean plastic or 100% virgin plastic free in the next 10 years. Because I forget, it might have been Walt Whitman. I don't want to, but somebody around. Anyways, there's a quote. Even if you're on the right path, you're going to get run over unless you're moving. So if you're sitting there saying, hey, we're going to be, and you're not doing anything and trying stuff like this, that is worse than at least not crawling towards that finish line and trying something, right?
Agreed. I mean, and they're trying the best that they can to use as much, like they said, as much ocean recovered plastic as they can, not using all virgin plastics. And I think I think it's a good start. I really do.
I think it is. And I would tell these people, hey, check out OPT.Earth, because they can give you 100% ocean plastic, and they can prove it too with data. And that's part of the stuff. I mean, so be fair, this was year and a half ago that this came out.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
So things have changed since then. There's some better stuff, although not as fast as we probably would like as far as advancements, right, in it. But there are people like the people we love and hold near and dear to our hearts at OPT.Earth that, they actually measure this stuff and certify this stuff and refuse to not do the right thing because they are on the right path and they can produce this for you. And anyways, there's options out there to keep going. What these guys are trying to do, though, and it interests me because you wrote a white paper, I don't know, last week. I think it was 2 years ago, but it feels like last week or whenever it was, on a circular economy. Because Oliver Nuds was always talking about creating a circular economy of plastics, right? And so that's what these guys are trying to do. This is a perfect example of trying to make a circular economy. Let's start there. So you wrote this paper. Why did you write the paper, and what was it about?
So I was really interested in breaking down the OPT system that they have currently going over in South Africa right now. And I was really interested in learning the difference between a linear economy and a circular economy, because I think in terms of anything nowadays, you have to put it in terms of the economy. You can be an environmentalist who's really, really passionate and say, we should take all the ocean plastic out because it's harming the fish and all this stuff. But to reach the people who have the money to put into the research and development, to reach the people who have the money to make real change, you kind of have to put things in terms of finances. So I was interested in looking at the difference between a circular and a linear economy. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the terms, a linear economy is where something is made with raw materials, it's used 1 to 100 times, whatever amount of times, but then it ends up in a landfill and it's never used again. Where the circular economy is more circular. It's made with raw materials.
Less linear.
It's less linear. Even if it's made with raw materials, it's a product that can be used again and again and again. And then at the end of the life cycle of that product, those raw materials can be used again to create another product that's used until its end of its life cycle, then used again and again. And it's never going in the landfill. It keeps circulating around.
So let me put this vision in your head. So years and years ago, there was, and this was maybe close to 100 years ago, the thought of Plan Do Check Act, the Circular Plan Do Check Act, came about. I believe Schuhart and some others talked about this with tech, for the auto industry, et cetera, for quality control. And then later, it was met with input and became less of a circle, and it was more of a spiral. right? So when you're talking about circular economy, it doesn't mean that I get this coffee cup and then when I'm done with it, it turn it into another coffee cup. It could become another product or into a coffee cup and then into another product and another product and then back into a coffee cup. So it's this constant reuse that is going. So okay, got it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, and interesting that you said that. Like, I think there's a lot of one really interesting project that didn't end up working, but I thought was really cool in Florida is they were taking old tires. So these tires were made with rubber from, I think, a rubber tree is where rubber comes from. But anyway, the tire is used through the end of its life cycle, and then they were putting it offshore to use as coral reef like habitats and structures for fish. It didn't end up working out, but that's the key to the circular economy is you don't always have to think so in the box. This was a tire, so it needs to go into being a tire. It can be something different. It could be a playground. It could be a coral.
Yeah, because repurpose is the same as keeping it a circular economy, right? Instead of using another raw material to create another thing, use this used product and repurpose it instead of grabbing more resources from the earth, right?
It's like taking, let's say fibers from clothes and unwinding them and re-dyeing them and making a pair of pants out of what used to be a shirt or something, or, using that thread to fix a blanket that you have. I don't know. That's just.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the carpet industry down here where I'm at, I'm in Chattanooga, and just across into Northwest Georgia is where, I don't know, like 80% of the broadloom carpet in the world is produced there. It's crazy, but that's where it is. But they've been for years using bottles and bringing bottles and turning them back into yarn, to the fibers to then weave yarn to then make the carpet in your house. There's a darn good chance that the carpet in your house is made out of unless you bought 100% wool and spent that kind of money, it's probably repurposed bottles that are in there. They melt them down and recreate the strains.
It's pretty cool. And I think the one thing about that we do have to know is that there always will be a little bit of a spiral. Like, it's never going to be 100% a circular economy.
Right.
Because even when you're making the carpets with the fibers and then you're vacuuming and little fibers are coming off and going in your vacuum and then you're tossing that. And then, so those are microplastics that are going into the landfill, but it's not these pounds and pounds and pounds and pounds of garbage that's filling up. You're using things in a different way. And this is a huge thing. The reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce always has to come first, but then reuse is the second biggest one. So instead of jumping into recycling, because this isn't necessarily talking about recycling, like it is in a different way, but I think we should emphasize the word reuse because you're using things in a way you never thought you would. Use an old egg carton as a planter, or, put some rubber bands over a tin to put a soap holder for your bathroom, be creative and figure out ways to reuse items that would otherwise go in the trash.
I mean, it isn't really, I mean, not to get crazy and start arguing semantics or anything like that, but I kind of consider reuse and repurpose as sub parts of recycle, because that is recycling. Because even what OPT is doing, if you grind up a bunch of plastics and melt it in and throw it into an injection molder, you've really just repurposed what the stuff was. Anyway, you're right. It's really the same thing. It's just different ways of getting the recycling done, right? Because there's those that are out there trying to molecularly or chemically alter it back into its natural states, right? They're kind of breaking it down. I forget what it's called, but they're like breaking the plastic back down into its natural or the original elements, right, that were used to create it in the beginning. But anyways.
I think what I was kind of saying was more on the lines of what was the big push in the 80s when they were like, just throw it in the recycling bin. Like, it's fine. It might not have been the 80s. I wasn't alive, but
the 80s was the Native American Indian standing by the side of the road crying.
Oh, give a hoot. Oh no, that's different too.
No, that was the owl. But he would cry, and it was because they were blaming just the consumer on trash. If we just picked up our trash, everything was going to be great. Just ignore all the chemical companies and all that plastic that we're pumping and changing everything to at that time. That's when everything was converting right to the plastic stuff. It's your fault. You pick up your trash, don't throw it away, and everything will be great.
Right.
See you in 2022.
Really cool. What's really cool is now we're seeing that shift to the consumer can do so much. I mean, we really do have power to put our money where our mouth is and only buy products that we support and all this stuff. But we're now seeing companies that are trying to recycle, reduce, reuse right in front of our very eyes. Like OPT, for example, is taking ocean plastics and turning them into other things. There's companies that recycle threads from clothes, and we're really in a cool time where we're seeing not only ourselves trying to reuse and repurpose, but companies do it too, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, it absolutely is, and hopefully, I mean, I beat up the legal aspects of greenwashing, et cetera, on another thing that I put out because it just when they're just some people are trying to make it as if they're doing something by trying to uh, by bringing other people down, try to tear them down, and that's not the right thing. We need to applaud effort and maybe call to attention. Hey, you're not doing it right, and give them a chance to fix it and move on, like you said before. Because you got to do something. You can't just do nothing. That's a choice, and it's not the right choice. Doing nothing. But the circular economy paper and everybody, you can get to that on OPT.Earth. It is there. You can get to, and there's two of them there. There's another one there, and we'll talk about that in another episode. But what are the challenges of getting to a circular economy? Is it economically feasible to make this happen, and or isn't it? It's just something we have to grow into.
I think right now, because it's on such a micro scale, it's not really the economically feasible thing to do. Unfortunately, I think that right now it's very easy and cheap to make things from raw materials. We can make as much as we want, and on top of that, we're living in a very throwaway culture.
Yeah.
We have Amazon, we have Shein, we have all these places where you can get something very quickly and you can get something very inexpensively, but that thing is not going to be very sustainably made. A lot of sustainable green products are going to cost more than their counterparts. And I think that's because we don't necessarily have the resources and the infrastructure, and I guess up until this point, the interest to be able to do these things. So I think a lot of people look at it and they think, this is not a viable option for my company just because it costs more and I don't have that capital on hand right now. But the more we can get companies that are repurposing, recycling, reusing, that will become more common. And I think slowly over time, it will get less expensive.
I think you're right. Do you think that the EPR, I want to say it right because I always want to say ERP, but it's not right. The EPR, the Extended Producer's Responsibility legislations that are out there. We talked about this a little bit, the nebulousness. It has the potential to help this go forward, right? I mean, I hate to call them fines and I hate to call them taxes and all this other kind of stuff, but the financial incentives that could be put into these type of legislative, these bills, if you will, and right now they're at different state levels and different phases of them along the way. They're almost you can almost look at them as like tariffs against virgin plastic, right? And it makes the recycled plastics in some cases more viable economically until it gets large enough to just sustain itself, right? Because I agree with you. It fluctuates. There are times when recycled plastics is much better to use than virgin, but you have these large corporations that will then flood the market with virgin and lower the price, right? I mean, and this happens. This game is happening right now, and we could call out some of those people, but I don't want them to squash me like a bug right at this moment. But someday we will. But they're out there, and you know who you are, right? So it has that potential to help us move along, right? And that's what we're looking at. And it's kind of like if you follow the CARB and all that, the environmental and pollution out there in California, we joke about all the legislation that comes out of California and these high lofty goals, but it drives a lot of good at times, right?
I really think so. And I think that we shouldn't think of it necessarily as a tax or a fee, like you were saying. I almost think that it needs to come more in the form of you said the word incentive, so I have that stuck in my head, but I almost feel like there need to be some tax breaks for companies that are using a certain amount of recycled ocean plastics, or tax breaks and can prove it and have it like an actual backup. Or maybe there have to be tax breaks for companies that are reducing, reusing. There should be a different category or
a plastic credit or recycle credit, like there is for like carbon credits, et cetera.
Right. I don't know exactly what the right answer is, but I think that phrasing is very important. Like that's one thing that I've taught
yeah.
patients. Like we can't be like, we're going to start taxing you for all the virgin plastic you use. But if you said, okay, you're going to get these credits or these bonuses for every 500 tons of recycled ocean plastic you use, for example, I think that's what's going to really drive the change. And I think that's what people are going to start seeing. So I think these ERPs are going to be beneficial if we can figure out the ways that they work for us and not against us.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, and I think the last one that came out left it nebulous enough. I think we beat that horse to death. That it left it nebulous enough that it looks like there could be. They're letting us try and figure this out. We have time to do this, folks. Is what I think is there, because nobody wants to be the person putting a bill forth right now that's going to make it difficult for industry to survive. The economy is not doing all that great right at this moment. It's at an inflection point where we got to figure out some stuff, and we don't need extra burdens on it right now. But we also don't need extra burdens on our planet as far as throwing plastic everywhere. We need to be doing some things to support that and creating this circular economy. And it's easy for people to get involved in being in a circular economy. Is it not? I mean, it really isn't that hard. Do your recycling. It's out there. Read the stuff and support those companies that are trying to do the right thing. You don't, and it's really that simple, is it not?
It is. And it starts with education at the consumer level. You need to educate yourself about what is recyclable and what's not recyclable, like no wish cycling getting in the way. You need to then kind of look online. There's tons of blogs and cool information, and I can start posting on my Instagram of different ways that you can reuse certain things around your house. But then on top of that, before you just buy something on Amazon, before you just grab something from any company, look into their ethics, look into what they support, look into their backing, figure out if this is a company that you want to be supporting or not. And I truly think that as a consumer, we have a lot more power than we think. You know, we think that these companies kind of run everything, but I think that we can, what's it? You vote with your dollar. So if we're saying, okay, we want ocean plastics, we're going to support companies that use ocean recycled plastics. And then the trend is going to slowly get that way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I do think
I agree with you.
We have a lot of power here.
Yeah, we absolutely, and it's not just ocean or plastics that come out of the ocean or ocean plastics, like OPT technologies. I was talking to a gentleman today, and asking, okay, if it's OPT or ocean plastic technologies, why is some of your plastics, or a good portion, there's a decent percentage that comes actually off of land, and we describe that as coming off the land. And the answer is this: cleaning up the oceans isn't the only answer. You have to cut off the valve as well. The plastics don't come from the ocean and then they're waste in the ocean. They come from land. They're land-based plastics that get into the ocean. That's what ocean waste plastic is, right? It's not maritime just running around throwing garbage all over the place that did this. No, even right here in Chattanooga is ocean-bound plastic, because we have the Tennessee River and it starts flowing downstream, and eventually it gets out through the Mississippi Delta and into the ocean, either as partial or flaked or micro. And that's where the stuff winds up. And you look at the tons and tons of plastics that are like in the islands. The islands can't produce that much. It's not possible for the amount of plastics that they have. It's coming from, it's coming from South America. It's coming from China. It's coming from the U.S. It's coming from land. It's not there. So,
well, I think that's a big thing. Like, all plastics that are produced are theoretically ocean-bound plastics, because it is all one interconnected community. Even if you're not by a river, it lands on the ground, it blows over, it goes in the storm drain, it goes out to a river, the river goes to, like, any plastic that is produced is going to make its way to the river or make its way to the ocean unless we intervene. So I think that's kind of more like the ocean plastics, is that we need to protect the ocean because that's where it's all ending up and congregating, not necessarily where it's found. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But and grabbing it from, for people to get involved, you got to look at different things that are there and realize this: wish cycling, as you put it, and others have before, is not going to go away until we support a better way of recycling. And the current system in the United States is not a better; it's a horrible way. It is incredibly bad. way of doing it. It's incredibly inefficient. We're not grabbing the plastics close enough to post-consumer, which we really needs to be immediately after you and I use something that it needs to get into that recycling, right? We're grabbing such a little part of it that it's just not making any difference at all. They revised it down from 9% to 5 to 6 in the last study. We never got to 10%. We were at 9% recycling like 2 years ago. Now they revised it down to 5 to 6%.
Which is sad because I feel like so many people think that the answer is recycling and I'm doing the right thing by having a recycling can, but it's really not.
I'm not saying don't put it in the can. Do it because it's better than nothing, but it's awful. It's awful. Go to OPT.Earth, check it out, read the circular economy white paper that Emma put out there, and read the other paper. Is the other paper, is that the micro-recycling paper?
Yeah, that's more of an in-depth dive into OPT operations in South Africa, how they structure their micro-recycling plants, which may be an answer for some of the recycling issues that we're having. I don't know. Something to look into. For sure.
Well, that's it. I mean, you look at it, and you're right. You vote with your dollars. You vote with talking, and you vote by voting, and you vote by talking to your local officials, etc. Check out OPT.Earth. Check out the papers that Emma has written. See what Oliver Nudds and the gang are doing in South Africa. And what I'm trying to help them do, and Emma's trying to help them do, is bring it into the United States and the Americas and see if it's not just a little bit better way of recycling, right?
Yep.
I think it is.
I think so too. But I guess we'll see. Maybe leave a comment what you think about it after you check out the documents.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you can send me an email at michael@oceanplastics, oceanplastictechnologies.com. michael@oceanplastictechnologies.com is where you can do that. Or hit me up go on. You'll see me on LinkedIn as well. Michael Vincent on LinkedIn, and you can direct DM me from there. Love to hook up and hear what you guys think. We still got to get our email for this show, which we don't have yet, but we've got to get that. Where can they reach you at, Emma, that you don't mind being bugged 24 hours a day with people going, what are you talking about?
Yeah, if you're on Instagram, I'm on Instagram as OPT Emma. So come find me and picture me in the mountains so you'll know it's me. And I'll be posting updates about the shows that we produce and some links to stuff if we ever talk about it. So definitely give me a follow and let me know your thoughts because I'd be really interested.
Yeah, and don't be too harsh on us. This is show number 2.
We're getting there.
We'll get better. I promise. We may have gone backwards since the first. I don't know. I think it was. Anyway. Who knows? Anyways, peace and love, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.